Talk to Cassius. Conversations with today's icons from business, sports, and entertainment. I'm your host, Cassius F. Butts. We're here once again with Talk to Cassius. Brandon, we got another really cool guest with us here today. A gentleman who has been around for some time, actually hails from Midwest, but has been in the South for some time now. And I have to say, he's a Morehouse guy, so you know, he's always welcome to the table with that. His name is Troy Evans.
Hey, what's going on, Cassius? Brandon, appreciate it.
Is this the Midnight Love episode?
Let me tell you, this guy is
kind of
cool,
smooth.
He is cool all the time, from A to Z every day. That is Troy D. Evans. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear today from Troy Evans, who is actually a serial entrepreneur. He's an author. Brandon, he is also a person who has his own podcast as well, too. And he also is doing something in the education field, the executive director for Teach for America in South Carolina, for the state of South Carolina.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Troy D. Evans. Glad you're here today with us, Troy.
I'm glad to be here. Appreciate it. I'm glad I got the call. I feel honored. And, whenever I can be in your presence and soak up some of that greatness, it's a good day.
Oh, man, look. He's too kind.
This guy sounds like he's been doing podcasts and radio for like 45 years.
Man, let me tell you.
That's smooth.
He is. And I would tell you, one of the most memorable times I've actually had an interview was on his show. And give him the business. And we talk, and he has interviewed some of the most interesting, accomplished CEOs in this country. But I don't want to talk about it. Let's hear Troy talk about it. Let's talk about that first, and just what gave you the mind to start that podcast, and just to really kind of take that to a place that really a lot of us hadn't even been to before.
Definitely. So the podcast is Give 'Em the Business, and I wanted to start it because for as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated by Black business and the unique struggles that relate to entrepreneurship, particularly when you're Black.
Sure.
And so I thought some of the people that I've known over the years that have taught me invaluable lessons were people that had great stories that should be shared. And I'm a big fan of entrepreneurship and business podcasts, but I wasn't hearing a lot of Black voices. And so I wanted to interview and talk with, as much for my own selfish reasons as for the public, but to share those stories, to learn myself from those interviews. And so it's entrepreneurs and business leaders. So you could have made your mark, bootstrapping, or you could have risen through the ranks of corporate America, but you have a trait of success that I want to get out to the public and tell that story. So that's what Give 'Em the Business is all about. We just completed season 1.
Yeah.
So we have 7 or 8 episodes on all of the various platforms. And we're going to be starting season 2 pretty soon with some even bigger and better titans in the world of entrepreneurship and business leadership.
So talk about who are some of the most interesting persons you've talked to thus far, because you had a chance to talk to some really cool people. And Brandon, I had to tell you, some people didn't make that list, right?
Goodness.
Some people didn't make the list. I mean, you got to have your stuff right when you're dealing with Troy.
Sometimes they don't need to.
Well, some of them need to. Interesting.
So of course you mean beyond yourself, right?
Wait, hey, look, I never even mentioned it.
Did you make it?
I made it. Better skin of my chinny chin chin. I made it.
Well, honestly, what I wanted to do was show different levels of success, right? Because success is different for everyone. Mm-hmm. Some people have accumulated a lot of wealth. Some people at the beginning of that journey,
right,
and what have you. Some people have done it, like I said, through corporate America. Some people have done it elsewhere. So the very first guest who I was very proud to have on was Julius Hollis.
Okay.
One of the co-partners and co-founders of Air Atlanta. I was good friends with his brother, Michael Hollis, before he passed away.
Yes.
And I just remember, and I've known Mike, or knew Mike for 15 plus years. I just remember being astounded that a Black man owned a commercial airline. I didn't know that, right? And I'll tell a quick story. I was in a barbershop on MLK one day, and there were some young people in the barbershop, and somehow it came around to the young man that was sitting in the chair didn't believe that any black people had owned a McDonald's. And I spent 20 minutes telling him about the Leon Goodrums of the world and the Caesar Burks of the world and Harold Lewis's who had owned McDonald's and how they've been doing it for years and years and you know how he needed to get on the MARTA and go outside of the Bankhead area and learn more about that entrepreneurship that took place. And after that 20-minute, monologue, his response was, I bet you they don't own no Wendy's. Right?
Straight barbershop talk.
But what was astounding to me was just how inconceivable it was for people that look like us to realize that black entrepreneurs were doing great things. So Julius Hollis and Michael Hollis with the airline, tremendous. I recently had Michael Russell of H.J. Russell, CEO of H.J. Russell on. And, those are titans in their industry. But then I also went to with some people who are less known names. I had Adrienne Lance Lucas, Spellman's sister. So she raised $225 million for her own private equity. A story that needed to be heard.
Right.
Rob Jones with Cityscape Housing.
That's right.
And I didn't want to hear just the success stories. I wanted to hear the mistakes.
That's right.
I wanted to hear where they fell down, bumped their head a little bit, and how they got back up, brushed themselves off, and rebounded, especially because, like I said, that is unique. The rebound, sometimes black folks don't get a second chance. So that rebound is even more courageous and interesting of a story than maybe when you're hearing about it from someone else.
Right. In your walks in business, in entrepreneurial endeavors, coupled with the fact that you talk to all these people in your podcast, is there a connecting linear soup that goes with what you're serving? And I say that to say people who leave industry might have been people who just followed certain steps. People who are entrepreneurial by nature might be more aggressive. And then there might be some people in the middle. What are some of the things you've learned, from your own entrepreneurial endeavors and then from what you're getting from these people, if there are any common strings to put into that soup in the discussion?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I think there are some common things that rise to the top. The first is something that Cassius is awesome at, and that is being a master networker. You've got to make the most of your relationships. That is what being on this earth is all about. And if you can tap into the people that have come into your life for a reason, gain as much from them, and give as much back to them, then you're going to more than likely be successful. So that was one of the things. You got to leverage your network, right? That was one of the things that rose to the top. A second thing was don't be afraid to take insane risk, especially earlier in your life. You've got to be willing to, shut out the naysayers and believe in yourself, and stay the course for as long as it takes, because a lot of times the rewards are given to those who just were able to keep overcoming the obstacles. And but I'm going to tell you something that I've also learned that is kind of counter to that, and it's the fine line. It's the art of entrepreneurship and not the science. Yeah. You've got to be willing to stay the course, but you also got to know when you're on the wrong path.
Okay.
Right? So if you're on the wrong path, get off of that as soon as possible.
Pivot.
Right. Pivot as soon as possible. And sometimes the greatest success stories were those that pivoted early and realized after listening to their customers and to their target audience that this is what they really should be doing and not what they thought they should be doing. So that is one of the things as well that I think is critical to being successful as an entrepreneur.
So, Brandon, you hear Troy talk about these things, and obviously he comes from a place of experience. And for our listeners, Troy is someone who's kind of been through those successes and those successful places. But he's also been head of operations for poker operations in Las Vegas for a major hotel. He's been head of strategy for National Black MBA Association. And he is now the executive director for Teach for America for the state of South Carolina. Troy, talk about, you have a very diverse background, right? And you've kind of taken this and also put in a book as well, too. What inspired you to write the book, and tell us about it?
So the book is called Rest Assured. It's basically a business parable, short story. You can get through it in about 30 minutes. You can find it on Amazon. So, but the reason why I wanted to do that was because that was all about my business philosophy of once I set a goal, I'm not going to let anything stand in my way of achieving it. And the amount of dedication you have to put into overcoming obstacles. So that's what that business parable speaks to. But, you know, if I was to write another book, and I've been thinking about it, I'd probably call it Jack of All Trades, right? And it's because I have had such a varied background, and I've had just as many failures as I've had successes. But the one thing I am proud of, and I was actually, I'm reading a book right now by a guy named Bill Perkins. It's called Die With Zero, and he has an interesting take on life. But basically, he's like, you should measure your life not by the wealth you accumulate, but by the memories you accumulate. And so I'm taking stock of the memories that I've been able to accumulate in my years on earth. And I'm actually proud of what I've accomplished in the memory department.
Yeah.
I have one thing I've been blessed with is to pick up a new skill set or discipline in a short amount of time. If you give me 30 to 60 days in any discipline, you'll think I've been working there for 10 years. So I will master something extremely quickly as long as it's not open heart surgery, right? So, but if it's business related, I'll master it. And so that skill set has allowed me to be willing to say, you know what, I'm not interested in doing this anymore. Let me try something completely new.
But Brandon, the thing about he just talked about, but he's a Morehouse guy, so we like that, of course. Clark Atlanta, MBA, can appreciate that as well too. But where's that work ethic come from? Where's it come from? Who instilled that into your life, and why do you still use it today?
That's a great question. I would have to say it's probably come from a composite of a lot of different individuals who I try to always grab the best that they had to offer, be it my parents. My stepdad was an entrepreneur, and kind of following the path that he led, but also individuals that I just witnessed around me and wanting to be like them and kind of finding out what their success path was. But I'll also say that I'm an empirical person, and I found that the results were better when I applied a stronger work ethic than when I didn't. Okay. So I'm not one to be oblivious to the facts, and it was clear that when I tried harder, worked harder, stayed the path on something, I produced better results. And so that became what I wanted to associate with my personal brand.
How do we work through or navigate dropping that cipher into younger people? You made a very good point about being aggressive and taking risk and also learning from mistakes. But there seems a lot of times, sometimes culturally it's do some things. You go to school, you get a job, you go get a house, you go do this, you go get some kids. And then those conversations about taking risk, conversations about side avenues where you can start early, learn from them, maybe be successful early. When do those conversations need to start happening so we can see a lot of younger people, get entrepreneurial opportunities earlier in their lives?
I think you got to start immediately. My daughter is 7, and she wanted to buy a skateboard the other day, and I was like, well, we breaking open the piggy bank. You're going to have to learn what the difference between immediate gratification is and delayed gratification and working and me giving you an allowance for doing a good job versus not doing a good job and all of those things that go into it. She wants to do a lemonade stand this summer. I'm all for it, and so I want to get her on that path as early as possible, because if she wants a specific discipline, such as maybe being an architect or an attorney or something like that, she's going to obviously have to go to college. But if you want to be a success in business, you don't necessarily have to go to college. You got to get out in these streets and hustle, right? And you got to know the difference between negotiations that have gone well and haven't gone well when somebody took advantage of you. My grandmother used to always say, don't take no wooden nickels. Okay. And so you gotta bring that keen sense of hustle and awareness to your everyday appetite if you want to be successful in entrepreneurship. And to be honest, because I'm doing fairly well in life, I struggle with how to instill that in her instead of just giving it to her, right? And so that's one of the things that I try to focus on every day.
That's tough, and that's, I mean, that's very, very real. I mean, you've made it. You've been successful. You're in a place where you can give your daughter and your loved ones teachable moments through your own experience, but it's a different kind of experience for them, right? So they can hear it in theory, but they're looking like, well, Daddy, you did that. I don't have to do that.
Right.
So what do you do with it?
Right.
But I think this goes back to Brandon, his book, and I think it goes back to your podcast. You have different outlets to get information to people to learn how to avoid the things that they may have done. Spoken to folks like Julius, who I think the world of. We mentor both with Julius and the Bill Picards of the world, who are doing some phenomenal things. Really talk a bit about Teach for America and how can we play a role in making sure that we're taking some of the practices that you're putting out there in the state of South Carolina that we can apply here in Georgia.
Right, definitely. So Teach for America is an organization that attracts usually young leaders who want to give back to the community. It's most similar and was inspired by the Peace Corps, but you would commit to 2 years of teaching in a classroom that is most likely underserved, and we are focused on the equity of education. So how do we provide low income and children of color the same equitable education that some of the more affluent neighborhoods have? But we're looking, one of the things that we understand is that, we can teach you how to do a lesson plan. We can teach you how to present material in the most effective manner. What we really need, and is a hard time, and we have a hard time teaching, is to bring that passion to the table, right? To bring that love of community, to bring that sense of selflessness to the table. That's what we look for in the recruiting process, because if we can tap into that passion, we'll give you the skills to be successful in the classroom.
Okay. Before we start to wrap up, and I'm going to get some thoughts from you, Troy, some takeaways. It's a game. Gaming is a sport now, that you know.
Oh, no question. Big time with
big time. And also, you being in Las Vegas for a period of time, being head of operations, poker operations. What is that? Explain that. What does that mean? I don't get it. I mean, I'm a Uno kind of guy. I didn't know how to play spades. I play blackjack.
Can't play Tunk at Caesar's.
Man, they can play. If we could play Uno and Caesars, I'd be the king.
Boy,
I am the Uno king.
So listen, I got some gamble in me, which is why I take some risk.
Okay.
And one of the things I think I bring to the table is if it's gonna come down to our competitive of the mind, right? Because my body has deteriorated over the years, but if it's going to come down to the mind, I'm still sharp. And poker is a game of mental skill, right? And so I was fortunate enough at a young age to be financially viable enough to say, you know what, I like playing poker. Let me go out to Las Vegas and see what I can do. And went to the Hard Rock Casino.
Wow.
And they had just built this beautiful multi-million-dollar room, and nobody was playing in it. And so my business sense kicked in, and I started saying, well, I'm out here. I can turn this room around for them. And so I stalked the casino operations manager for like 3 weeks. And in that this is that work ethic and preparation.
Sure.
So in that 3 week, I went around to every poker room in the entire Las Vegas area, and I manually counted how many poker players were playing at every table in every room. And I did that every night for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And then I compared a rudimentary market share report.
Told you this dude was
right?
cool.
So when the casino operations director is like, I'll meet with you. This dude don't know nothing. He's not from the hospitality industry, whatever.
Right.
I went in and said, listen, I don't know anything about the gaming world, but what I do know is business, and I do know poker. Right, because poker is the best business game you could probably learn, in my opinion. And I said, if you give me an opportunity, I will increase your market share from bottom of the list to number 3 in the whole city. What I didn't know was he paid for a market share report. And when he compared my report to theirs, it was spot on.
Wow.
Okay.
And so he called me the next day and said, I want to offer you a job to turn this room around for me for 2 reasons. One, because I can see that you took this seriously in your preparation. And 2, you didn't promise me the world. You didn't say we were going to be number 1. You said we were going to be number 3. And so I knew that you were serious about where you planned on landing, and you wasn't selling me some pie in the sky dreams.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was I got the room, I turned it around. It became very successful, and I oversaw a staff of 55 people, $10 million, and was all about making sure that department revenue generator on the P&L was successful for the Hard Rock. I met people that you see playing on TV all day long, the Phil Ivies of the world, the Chris Fergusons of the world. I was playing with them, the Doyle Brunsons. I still do. I go play in the World Series of Poker every year.
Really?
I'm still trying to get the bracelet, but I have cashed several times.
Okay.
But it's a great game. People always tell you to learn chess, but I say learn poker because chess is a game of complete information, and in life you never have all the information. So you got to make your best guess estimate with only 80% of the information, and that's the same thing with poker. I don't know what card you holding,
Right.
but based on the information you've given me, what can I assume, and then what risk am I willing to take when it comes down to money? Because it's not in Tunk, Tunk is gambling too, but in Uno, it's did you win the hand?
Right.
But in poker, it's did you win money? So
Wow.
Should I ask him if he can help me with my Tunk market?
You know what? You might have to.
Take that out to Vegas. Maybe build something here in Atlanta. That is a fantastic.
I dropped with 30 in Tunk, so I just let you know.
But that's a fantastic story in perseverance, not under or over promising or under delivering, and showing people that you are serious and giving them some hardcore evidence that you are. So not just lip service, but that is an incredible story that I think a lot of people can have some things resonate for them down the road.
And I'll tell you another thing associated with that. I go back to that personal brand. Know what you want your personal brand to be. I want, people when they interact with me to call me later and say, well, I want to do some business with you again. When that casino operator left, he wanted me to come with him. Everywhere he's gone. He's currently runs the Atlantis in the Bahamas.
Okay. Oh,
wow. But before that, it was in Aruba. Before that, it was in Singapore.
They need somebody to hold the boxes.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
I'd like to go.
MC.
And I haven't taken advantage of the offer, but I at least want the option because I did a good job.
That's pretty cool. Wow. Yeah, it's always cool when you actually leave a favorable impression, with people who you work with. And actually, to your point, Brandon, following your passion. Continue to follow your passion. Is something we talk about often. I actually had to make sure I made a segue also for our folks at First Choice. First Choice this is sponsored by First Choice today, where you can get all your credit card mortgages, lines of credit, consumer loans, and PPP, Brandon.
Yep. PPP, very necessary for a lot of small, medium, and all businesses, not just for the business owner, but also to take care of employees. So make First Choice Credit Union your first choice when you're looking for PPP funding and to secure your business the way you need to.
There you go. Just don't play poker with it. That's all. Don't play poker with it. You might lose. You're playing with Troy. That's it. Game over. Troy, any last words you can give us? Any takeaways we can take? I mean, such an impressive background, so diverse, very intentional, very serious. What takeaways can you give us that we could add for our listeners and our viewers today?
I like short little quips. If you're gonna be a bear, be a grizzly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And a once in a lifetime opportunity is a fact, not a reason. So keep those in mind. Think about your personal brand. Take the risk while you're young, if you can, but don't stop taking them. Colonel Sanders, I think, started Kentucky Fried Chicken in the 60s or 70s. So
wow.
You can take the risk at any point in time, but you got less to worry about losing when you're young. So do that, but follow your passions and don't measure success by wealth. Measure it by the experiences you've had.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for being with us today. Brandon, awesome show today.
Very inspiring, very informative, very educational. People will be moved.
Absolutely. Want to thank you again for tuning in with us here at Talk to Cassius, and continue to follow your passion. As Troy said, just don't play poker with me. All right. We'll see you next time.